want to show you some resume examples, both ones that students have created as well as just some professional ones. So, to begin with, we really want to make sure that when you're listing out the stuff on your resume, keeping in mind who's going to be looking at this. Most people that are looking at a resume are going to look at it for less than 30 seconds, which means you want to make it as organized as possible. You want to make sure that it's not crowded and that there's actually some good design to it. It doesn't have to be overly designed, but you want to make sure that it's easy for people to skim. Here, you have to read through so much information, and there's no size difference aside from just a slight contrast difference on the name. Look at this one. This one's much more organized. It wouldn't have taken a huge amount of graphics to do this. It's really more about organizing and deciding how can I consistently repeat, from crap. We've got contrast, bigger word and a color. Repetition, the same bold being used for the name of the what it was that you were doing at that job. Having proximity, grouping skills, training, education, community service together. So this is much stronger and cleaner than this. So I'm looking for something at the bare minimum more like this. Now, you can start this completely from scratch. And what I mean by that is you would open up InDesign or Illustrator and do an 8.5 by 11-inch document. And then my recommendation would be have a separate text box for every single heading and a separate text box for each piece of content. So, for example, this would be one text box, this would be another, this would be another, and then the bullets could be together in one box. So, every time you've got something, this will give you more flexibility if you have the headings in separate boxes and the content in separate boxes. This could be together, this could be together, but these I would keep separate. The other thing that's nice with that is then you can hold down the shift key and select each one of these and change the fonts really quickly, change the colors, move them around, line them up. It's going to give you more flexibility. So that's if you want to start with completely from scratch and create something that's a little bit more unique. Something similar to, let me hit escape here. I'll show you a couple students from a couple years ago. This is someone who set one up just in InDesign. She set this up and it's a little dense inside of this area. I'd probably want to break that up a little bit. But I was able to add just a little bit more of a graphic feel to it and kind of play around with things. So these were done from a blank document. Totally legitimate. You can do that. If you're feeling like I would like to try something a little bit different, this year I'm going to test out having you use some templates. So you can modify and change these things around quite a bit. So right here on the homepage, right down here, I have already downloaded these templates for you. All of these except for this one are in InDesign. So you can see InDesign, InDesign, InDesign. So what I've done is I've downloaded these and I've taken out the cover pages because we're not going to do the cover letters. And you can go in and actually change the content. So for example, here's one. So you could actually go into the existing content and make adjustments to this. Although I don't know why this one is coming up with a cover. Oh, it's because I open up ones that are on my desktop. So the idea will be you'll have these documents and you can work with these. If for whatever reason something's locked, it's possible it's on the master page. So just hold down the Control Shift, just like you did when you were working with the magazine spreads to get the page numbers to show up. You had to have Command or Control and Shift, but I can help with that. And you can go in, you can change colors, but I would start first with the content. So I've got a variety of different possible resumes to work with. And the way that you can download these is look for what the name is. That one's called bordered resume. That one's basic resume. That's bold resume. If you click on this link, it will open up the Google Drive and you'll be able to download any one of those templates. You could download a couple of them if you want, just to experiment and see what's there. Now, as a future piece, we'll talk more about why we aren't doing this particular one, but this is optional. Down the road, you might consider as one of your choose your own projects to go in and make a more creative resume. So with something like that, what I was looking for on the creative one is I wanted to show you ways that a lot of more higher end graphic designers will set up their resumes. Now, these would not be ones you'd necessarily submit online because they have software that just read plain text and it won't actually read the graphics. But check these out. If you want to stand out, that definitely stands out. Same thing there. I thought this was interesting. It's talking about where they were at the beginning through the universities, worked in the lab, started doing internships, did some more internships, and then worked as a commercial producer for this particular company during that time. Like, man, that's an interesting way to take it. Here's somebody who was into game and character design, made it set up almost like a video game with icons and stuff. Thought that was brilliant. But since we're working on the bare minimum right now, as far as just doing a base level or slightly upgraded level of the resume, I think these may be a little bit beyond the time that we have right now. However, if it's something you're really interested in, you think this is, yeah, I'd really like to do something like this, we can talk about how that can be one of the optional projects that you work on because you're going to choose from that during this quarter. So we'll talk more in detail about that. Bare minimum, though, what I'm looking for is choose one of the templates or work through, wherever the heck my screen went, developing your own basic structure that's here. Now, as far as the tips on what to do for writing it and making sure you have all the right content, I've included this up here under the assignment. So these are the tips of, for most students, these are the headings you'll use. You might have some, like if you don't have any awards, don't put it on there. You don't want to draw attention that you don't have something, so leave that off. If you don't have any extracurricular activities, leave that off. So you can reword some of these pieces, but these are the general ones that I see for the most part on most high school students. Then as far as writing, these are my tips here about spelling out street, avenue, road, using action verbs. What I mean by that is start with like developed, managed, organized, produced, cleaned, maintained. Any past tense action verb is going to be stronger. You don't want to use the word I anywhere on the resume. It's redundant. This whole resume is about you, so there's no need to have the letter I. Definitely spell check. If you're inside of InDesign, there is a spell checker. Way you can do that is go to Edit, Spelling, check spelling, and it'll check your spelling. You want to make sure that you don't have any typos on there. And then be able to back up every statement you make with actual evidence. So like develop promotional flyer to increase membership for Key Club. Awesome. And then emphasize your positive skills and quality. You want to try to keep it to one page if possible. There is one, I mean, there's sometimes you may have longer than that. But again, since people are only looking at it for like 30 seconds or less, you want to make this as quick as possible. I would start with the most recent things that you have in each section. So if you've had 2 jobs, start with your most recent one. Then underneath it, do your older one. It's what's known as reverse chronological. Chronological is just time order. Reverse is start with your recent and go backwards. Make sure your name's a little bit bigger than everything else, and then play around with the fonts. If you end up using a template, play around with the colors, play around with the fonts. I don't want it to look like every single person used the exact same one, so customize it a little bit. So that is what we're working on for the resumes, and as always, if you have questions, just ask.